Hey, what is going on, guys? Didi here, and welcome back to where we take awesome out of the box. Now, the year is finally coming to a close, and we've reviewed a bunch of smartphones this year. Now, you're probably wondering which one is the best one to grab for your holiday gaming. Now, with tons of phones across the board, we just had to chop it up into different price categories. And to start things off, here are our top best budget phones under 10,000 pesos. Honorable mention, the Huawei Y7A at 8,990 pesos. Don't count Huawei out in the sub 10,000 peso segment just yet, as the Y7A is one of their better offerings in 2020. While its Kirin 710A processor is not as powerful as other processors used in the sub 10,000 peso segment, you get a bunch of awesome features. The Y7A sports a distinctly Huawei back panel that houses a rectangular camera module reminiscent of the Nova 7 and the Nova 7 SE. Like its more premium siblings, the Y7A opts for a side-mounted fingerprint scanner, keeping the back panel clean, on top of having a modern USB-C port. I'm not really a fan of back-mounted fingerprint scanners, so this is a big plus for me. You get a large 6.67-inch display with a 20:9 aspect ratio and a full HD Plus resolution. The camera punch hole can be found in the middle, housing the 8-megapixel selfie camera. For the cameras, you get a quad rear camera setup that is led by a 48-megapixel main camera. This performs well in low light and can shoot up to 60 FPS. You also get an 8-megapixel ultra-wide and 2-megapixel depth and macro cameras. For gaming, it can play most popular titles, though you'll need to tone down some of the settings to churn out some more FPS and stability. For the battery, you get a 5,000 mAh battery with 22.5 supercharge, which is faster than the 18-watt charging that you will be seeing on this list. With the sub 10,000 peso segment being more competitive this year, the Y7A proves that Huawei has a strong entry in the segment. It is really nice to see features that used to be found on Huawei's more premium phones trickle down to the Y7A, earning it a place as our honorable mention. Now, before we get started on the main list, please do note that this is in no particular order. Number 1, the Poco M3 at 6,990 pesos. The Poco M3 offers incredible specs at a price that its competitors will struggle to match. There's no doubt that it's a great stocking stuffer for people looking for budget bang-for-the-buck smartphones this Christmas. Poco decided to give the plastic back of the M3 a faux leather finish. That's a cut above the usual plastic that we get from devices at this price point. Not only does it slightly resemble leather, it sorta kinda feels like it too, giving it that extra edge against competing devices that go for the usual plastic finish. The phone has a 6.53-inch Full HD Plus display with a dewdrop notch situated on the top for its 8-megapixel selfie camera. The display is also protected by Corning's Gorilla Glass 3. Despite having an advertised brightness of 400 nits, it would have helped to make it brighter. Visibility might not be as good outdoors, so it's worth taking note of that. The Poco M3 has 3 cameras on the back, but only one really counts here. The primary shooter here is a 48-megapixel sensor. It's accompanied by a 2-megapixel macro camera and a 2-megapixel depth sensor as well. These are stat stuffers, and we would have preferred a single wide-angle camera instead. The Poco M3 comes equipped with the Snapdragon 662 processor. This has 4GB RAM and 64GB internal storage. In case you need more, it also has a 4GB RAM and a 128GB storage variant. As for the performance of the Poco M3, well, it's pretty good. The phone feels very fluid and it has no problems running most mainstream apps and games. The best part of the Poco M3 though is its massive battery. It's one of the only phones in the sub 10,000 peso category that sports a 6,000 mAh battery, since most other offerings top out at 5,000 mAh at the most. This guarantees hours worth of gaming and content. The Poco M3 isn't perfect, but it delivers more than enough features at a very, very aggressive price point. With everything it has to offer, there's no arguing against the overwhelming value of the Poco M3. Number 2, the Redmi Note 9 at 7,990 pesos. With tons of features crammed into them while still keeping cutthroat prices, the Redmi Note 9 lineup has been the benchmark for insane value for money when it comes to budget and mid-range smartphones. The Redmi Note 9 shares the same design as its Pro counterpart, save for the different flash location and a rear-mounted fingerprint scanner. The Note 9 is also noticeably lighter than the Pro version, which some people prefer. You get a 6.53-inch display with a punch hole for the 13-megapixel selfie camera. It is Widevine L1 certified, so you can enjoy Netflix shows and movies in full HD. We're also happy to say that it has good color reproduction and decent brightness when used outdoors. It also comes with a quad-rear camera setup showcasing its 48-megapixel main camera. It's one of the cheapest smartphones out there to offer a count that high. Aside from a 2-megapixel macro and depth sensor, you get an 8-megapixel ultra-wide to complete the quad setup. The Redmi Note 9 sports a Helio G85 processor. This is paired together with 3GB RAM and 64GB internal storage. Annoying bloatware aside, you get a very smooth experience because the G85 works just as well as the G90T. When it comes to gaming, it really depends on the title. The Redmi Note 9 and Note 9 Pro are almost the same with Asphalt 9 and PUBG Mobile at the highest graphics settings. Gaming performance differs significantly in more demanding games like NBA 2K20 and Call of Duty Mobile. While it is still playable, you might need to tone down the graphics on the Redmi Note 9 a little bit to get a smoother gameplay experience. You get a 5020 mAh battery as well, which is fairly standard at its price range. You get 18-watt charging, which takes about 2.5 hours to top up from zero. From feature-packed specs, decent internals, very capable cameras, to cutthroat prices, it is hard to match what the Redmi Note 9 has to offer. Number 3. The Cherry Mobile Aqua S9 Max at 9,999 pesos. Anyone that has counted Cherry out of the mobile phone game is in for a shock this year. The local brand debuted one of its most competitive budget phones ever, the Cherry Mobile Aqua S9 Max. It's one of the best hero phones from the brand to date, offering compelling features at under 10,000 pesos. Like a lot of you pointed out in the comments, the Aqua S9 Max is almost identical to the Redmi Note 8 Pro. It's not a carbon copy though. The Aqua S9 Max is a tad thicker thanks to the bigger 5130 mAh battery inside. That being said, the phone is both thick and heavy, which might turn some people off, but it's a good price to pay for a bigger, better battery capacity. Up front, you get a 6.53-inch display with a water drop notch that is home to a 32-megapixel selfie snapper. You get a full HD Plus resolution on the Aqua S9 Max, along with a thin bottom bezel. We're happy to say that the colors look great and they really improved on the brightness, so you shouldn't have a problem using this outdoors. That being said, it is only Widevine L3 certified, so that means you only get standard definition for Netflix videos, but at least you get full HD on YouTube videos. For the cameras, you get a 48-megapixel main shooter, which can shoot videos in 4K. It can also shoot 108-megapixel photos through software interpolation. You also get an 8-megapixel ultra-wide camera, plus 2-megapixel depth sensor and 2-megapixel macro camera. You may also notice that it has less RAM than the Flare S8 Plus from last year, but sports a more powerful Helio G90T. It is currently the cheapest to feature this processor. I recently did a gaming review on this, so definitely check that out. But to gist it out for you, I had a blast playing games like Genshin Impact, NBA 2K20, Asphalt 9, Call of Duty Mobile, and LoL Wild Rift very smoothly. Another big upgrade is the battery. Now we get a 5130 mAh cell, which means you can get a good amount of gaming done in a single charge. Sadly, no fast charging here since you get 18-watt charging, which is a budget phone standard. Cherry Mobile wants to end 2020 with a bang, and the Aqua S9 Max is solid proof that the Pinoy brand is still up for a fight in the highly contested under 10,000 pesos segment. Number 4. The Realme Narzo 20 at 7,990 pesos. The Realme Narzo 20 is a great device for people who want to play mobile games without having to break the bank. At just under 8,000 pesos, it delivers the goods in gaming and has the legs to sustain that performance all day. The Narzo 20 does get a whole new texture design for its plastic back, with the ridges forming a V when viewed at the right angle. Despite that, the phone looks and feels a lot like the Realme C15. Both phones even have the same overall thickness. The plastic back feels relatively sturdy and should resist normal wear and tear even without a silicone case. The Narzo 20 has a 6.5-inch HD display, much like the Realme C15 and its brothers. There's an 8-megapixel camera embedded in the water drop notch at the top. The colors were middle of the road, not bad and not too great either. The Widevine certification tops out at L3, which means you're not getting HD video from sources like Netflix, though you can watch full HD on YouTube. That's not such a big deal for a device at this price point, but it's worth taking note of this going in. The Narzo 20 has a better set of cameras compared to the Realme C15. You're getting a higher resolution 48-megapixel main camera, a far more useful 8-megapixel ultra-wide camera, and a 2-megapixel macro lens. The phone gets a MediaTek Helio G85, which is a big jump from the MediaTek Helio G35 on the C15. You also get 4GB RAM and 64GB internal storage. The jump to the Helio G85 processor from the G35 on the C15 is a good move for Realme. This gives the Narzo 20 a bit more power in everyday use as well as in gaming. Boosting the Narzo 20's gaming chops is the large 6000 mAh battery as well as its 18-watt fast charging capabilities. The Narzo 20 is a great addition to Realme's lineup of bang-for-the-buck budget phones, offering great performance and battery life while keeping the price low. Number 5. The Realme 7i at 9,990 pesos. Launching a few weeks after its brothers, the Realme 7i looks to fill a gap at the lower end of the 10,000 peso market that the Realme 7 fails to fill. The Realme 7i deviates from the design language shared by the Realme 7 and 7 Pro. There's a rectangular camera module, with the cameras arranged in an L shape. The polycarbonate panel has a glossy finish. It also has a different button layout than its more expensive siblings. For the display, you get the same 6.5-inch IPS panel as the Realme 7. The resolution may be downgraded to HD+, but you still get a punch-hole notch housing a 16-megapixel selfie camera and 19Hz refresh rate. The latter being a rare feature on a budget smartphone. The 90Hz refresh rate does help in making the overall user interface smoother. Given that a higher refresh rate can consume more power, the Realme 7i has a 60Hz refresh rate option for better power savings. If you want the best of both worlds, you have the Auto Select option. This lets the phone select which refresh rate to use depending on the app. You get a whopping 64-megapixel camera on this, as well as an 8-megapixel ultra-wide. You also get a 2-megapixel depth sensor and a 2-megapixel monochrome sensor. For the Realme 7i, Realme goes back to Team Qualcomm, with its use of the Snapdragon 662 processor. That is paired with 4GB RAM and 128GB internal storage. In our gaming tests, it played games like Marvel Super War, NBA 2K20, and PUBG Mobile pretty smoothly, but struggled with Asphalt. If you're big on this game, it is worth taking note of this. We also get a 5000 mAh battery on this, and although that might seem fairly standard, the Snapdragon 662 is able to stretch this out pretty well despite the 90Hz refresh rate. Realme made a very good move bringing over the 4GB version at just under 10,000 pesos. Being 2,000 pesos less than its 8GB sibling, you still get the same goods like a 6.5-inch HD Plus display with 90Hz refresh rate, 64-megapixel main rear camera, and 5000 mAh battery with 18-watt USB-C charging. That's a pretty good deal. There you have it, our top 5 best budget phones at below 10,000 pesos for the year 2020. Did any of them catch your eye? Are you planning to buy one for yourself or for a loved one? Comment down below and let us know. We have articles on all of these phones on unbox.ph, so don't forget to check those out. Also, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you enjoy our videos. Hit the notification icon if you want to get them updates when we drop them videos. Once again, I am Cholo Tolentino, and I'll see you guys in the next one.